Hello hackers, welcome back to video number 2 in the LevelKit text adventure series. Now in this video, what we're going to be trying to do is to modify one of the existing levels that exists within our game so that we can change not only the options that are visible, but also demonstrate how we can set up an item that can be added to the user's backpack. This particular item could be used later on for a different mechanic. In essence, what we're going to be doing is adding a key to the user's backpack, and then later on we might be able to utilize that key for a mechanic where if the user has access to this particular key, they're able to open a door or a chest or something like that. But the purpose of this video, just to make it so we can add the video, just to add the key to their backpack and just to add the option to the level so that we can collect it. Now, as you know, if you watched the first video, that beginning section allows us to travel left to a particular training alcove where we can select our training blade. It's in this room that we want to have the magic key that we're able to then select. So let's navigate to that particular level so that we can find it. So when we open this one up here in the levels folder, we can then double click on the armory room, and then this is where we can get our training blade. So this is the place that we want to then be able to set it up so that we can then get our other item. The issue, of course, being is that that item does not exist at this point in time. So before we go and make some changes to the room itself, so that we're able to add the code that allows us to select the item, let's go back and make sure that the game actually has the item within it. So to find where the items are found, we're going to toggle open the game folder here, and we're going to open the items folder. And you can see that at this point in time, we don't have any items in our game. Now that might seem a little bit crazy because, as you are well aware if you've watched the last video, we can pick up the training blade. The important point of difference here is that any of our weapons specifically go into the weapons file here instead. Whilst we've got this open, I'm all about doing stuff as efficiently and effectively as possible. So in our items file, if we were to increase the size of the brackets here, this allows us to then start to put some code in that's going to allow us to build our key. Now, because our key and our weapons are basically the same thing, what I'm going to do is select all of the code for just the training blade. I don't want the wooden bow at this point in time. And I'm going to come back into my items file, paste the code in for the training sword, and I'm now going to make some modifications. The first thing we want to do is obviously change the name of it here. So you can see that the name of the training sword up here is training_sword. We cannot have a space in there. So we're going to call this one mysterious_key. The name of that particular item, we can see we can put a space in. This is the name that appears in the inventory. So again, we'll call that one mysterious key. And then we can provide a description. That description is what appears at the bottom of the screen in the inventory when the user selects that particular item. A mysterious key that appears to unlock something big. Okay, now we can type in whatever we want there. Now we fill in the category. Now, obviously at this point in time, the category is no longer a weapon because we're talking about the key. So we might just place this as a quest reward. Could just call it an item. Basically, you can build anything you like there. As it's not a weapon and it doesn't have an effect on the user's stats, we can delete those two sections there. And we now have our item built and ready to go. So the key differences between the two different sets of items that could exist, the weapons are things that may actually affect the user's stats. So we can see here that we have 10 extra attack because of the training sword, and it is in the melee category. For our wooden bow, which isn't used in the game at all at this point in time, it is a ranged weapon that increases our attack stats by 8, and then if used in a ranged setting, would increase our stats by 15. So jumping back to our key is ready to go. We now know that it is called the mysterious key. So now it's time to add that to our game so that we're able to see that. First and foremost, as I said, I'm all about doing things efficiently. So if we can copy and paste something and make changes rather than retype, I always feel like we should do that. So for our training alcove, we're still in our practice alcove, which is our armory. We're going to go through and copy this entire chunk of text for an option spec. Now, essentially what the option spec code is it's basically the framework's ability to build a button for us that allows us to then click on that and do something within our text adventure game. The label code that you can see here is essentially the text that is written on the code. So we might say, pick up the mysterious key. okay, because we know that this is a mysterious key. And at that point, we now need to say which item it is that we want to collect. Now, as we know from before, we couldn't put any spaces into the actual name of the item, so we can go back through and type in mysterious_key. It is super important that you get this exactly the same as what you called it in the items. So one way that you could always make sure that you got that correct was to come back to your items file, copy that particular text out, and then in between the quotation marks, hopefully I typed it the same, paste that in. Okay, and now we know that the ID that we gave it back in the items file is going to be the same as what's there in the user's backpack. This set flag thing here is an option that allows us to do a couple of different things. When we set a flag on a user's or a player's profile, essentially what's happening is we're telling the game that something has happened. So if we've set the flag that the weapon was taken, this might allow us to then start to add some stats. But most importantly, what it does is it allows us to ensure that something doesn't appear more than once. So you can see here that we've got our set flag of weapon taken, and it also requires that the user does not have the flag weapon taken, meaning that if the user first comes into the game and goes into the training alcove and they select the training blade, the only option that exists for them at that point is to return to the start. If they were to click back into the training alcove again, and we didn't have this particular weapon taken flag option there, the option to select a training blade would occur again, meaning that the user could go backwards and forwards, constantly multiplying their stats adding 10, to their stats until they were willing and ready to participate in the game. That particular mechanic may actually mean that the game ends up completely broken, because if you'd spent enough time going backwards and forwards, even if we'd built some boss that had 1,000,000 health, the user may have gone backwards and forwards 100,000 times to get 1,000,000 damage added to their profile. So basically that's what that does there. So in this case, the flag that we're looking for obviously isn't weapon taken. So we're going to come back in and we might say key taken. Again, the same thing would need to happen here. We don't want to now know that the weapon was taken. We want to know that the key was taken. The hint here is something that might appear on our particular key. Now, in this instance, we don't have any effects because it's not going to be equipped, so we can delete that option there. And because this isn't an actual game-breaking item or something like that, we can also take that particular section out. Now that I've got my option added and I've got my item added to the room, I'm just saving both files. So that's Command S on Mac or Control S on Windows. Now again, if you watched the last video, you would have run this game start file down here over on the left hand side, which is our game_start.py file. And now that actually appears up here at the top. Now, if it says game start here and it doesn't say current file, we can just press the play button. However, if you notice that it says current file, our items.py file isn't going to do anything. So we'd need to come over here, right click on game start.py and click the game start button. Just to show you that this one works as well, I'm going to press the play button there. And as you know, it opens in the background. So we're going to push that one there. So the first thing is we still appear in that same place where we're visiting the entrance hall, and I can move to the left to go to the practice alcove, and you can see that there's obviously that change that we have now where we've got our training blade, which we can pick up here as well, or we can get our mysterious key. Now, just to show you that the two things actually do work, I'm going to just select my key first, and you can see that in my backpack I now have my mysterious key, and then the description that we typed in appears down here. The training blade still appears because we haven't yet removed that flag of not having the blade. So if I was to go back to the entrance though, and now come back to the practice alcove, you can see that these are the only two options that exist because we now have the flag of the mysterious key being picked up. It is very important that when you're setting these flags, that each of the flags for the different items, if you don't want them to be able to be repeated, must be unique. So I'll just say that again. The flags that we set, so that's these guys here, must be unique. Because if we have multiple swords throughout the game and we set the flag as weapon taken, as soon as we pick up our first sword, no other sword option will actually appear in the game at all. In saying that, if that is a mechanic that you want, where you can only wear one set of armor, or you might only want to have one particular sword that the user can pick up, and depending when they select that determines which sword they got for the game. You may set those to be different things. So just jumping back into our game, this time I'm going to select my training blade. I'm going to return back to the entrance, and then I can go through and fight my goblin if I wanted to, because as we're aware, because we had the training blade, our attack stat is now big enough to kill the goblin, and we'd be able to win the game. So in essence, that's a very quick rundown of how we can modify an existing room and also add another item to the game, setting up the options for the room so that we're able to see an extra button that we can click, as well as adding more stuff to our inventory. In the next video, we're going to be looking at how we can create a brand new room so that way we're able to extend the sample game and move forward. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks.